the children leave, I'm going to invite Laura to join me for our ministry spotlight. I've got one here. I brought it up with me. Oh, we probably will upset things if we use them too close together.
Are we safe?
Yes. We're just trying to make sure the sound works properly, not so far away. So, Laura, here we are in Ministry Spotlight, and we know that you represent Christians Against Poverty. But that always seems like a no-brainer to me, because surely all Christians are against poverty. So why do we need an organisation that is distinct and separate with that name?
I sure hope all Christians are against poverty. I agree. I think that's quite likely. And it exists because there's a need. We use financial distress more commonly than poverty these days, but Christians Against Financial Distress, CAFS, not quite as a ring to it as CAF is. But there's a need and there's a place for the church to be stepping into that need. So the mission of Christians Against Poverty, or CAP, is to inspire and equip a movement of churches to walk alongside those experiencing financial distress while sharing the love of Jesus. So we know that financial distress is a big deal at the moment. Everyone's feeling the impact of the rising cost of living. In fact, the stats study done just last year showed that only 1 in 5 Australians feel financially secure, which implies that 4 out of 5 Australians feel financially insecure, that a change in their circumstance could push them into a place of financial distress. And we have an opportunity to be able to step into those spaces where there's a lot of shame and isolation and distress, and provide relationship.
Now, you have alluded to the fact that financial distress is no respecter of people, and I'm guessing you see folk from all different kinds of backgrounds. What are some of the factors that are leading to this financial distress?
Yeah, there's no one face of someone who might be experiencing financial distress, particularly over the last couple of years. Food Bank is showing data that a significant portion of people accessing their services, which is food, so a basic necessity, actually have mortgages and are employed. And so it's not just those who you might consider the most vulnerable who are currently in places of real desperation. But what we're seeing is that a change in circumstance is usually what triggers someone to be experiencing financial distress. So that could be an unexpected baby. That could be a loss of income or a loss of a job. It could be either becoming unwell yourself or someone in your world becoming unwell, and there's medical expenses or the need to become a carer. It could be relationship breakdown. One of the vulnerable groups are women, particularly, experiencing financial difficulty as a result of domestic violence or leaving domestic violence. And so a lot of different scenarios, many of which we can really relate to, are triggers that are putting people into those circumstances. And 1 in 4 is what's currently showing in Australia as those who are experiencing financial distress, and acute financial distress, so really desperate situations, 1 in 10, which is really common. You know, that's people in this church who would be in that position.
It's scary. So how exactly does your organisation help these people, and can you share some of the results you've seen?
Yeah, I'd love to. So CAP trains church volunteers to become what we call money mentors. So they provide training in mentoring, in interpersonal relational skills, and in financial capability skills. So take a church volunteer with a big heart and then equip them and train them and support them in order to be able to begin mentoring people in their own communities who are experiencing financial distress. And you might think that in order to do that, you need to be really financially savvy. But actually what we see is we need people who love people, who care about them, who want to provide relationship, because a big part of this offering is financial education, but actually it's relationship, it's discipleship, it's community, it's giving people the opportunity to know Jesus and be brought into a church family. And that's a really big thing, because financial material poverty is huge, but relational poverty is just as huge in Australia, and they're often linked. Isolation and financial distress go hand in hand. And so to bring someone into a place of community, see my dad taking pictures of me in the background. Dads never change, do they? They're always the same. It's a really beautiful thing. If you're someone who's like, oh, I could make a cup of tea and hear someone's story and be their friend, then that's a place for you.
Excellent. So I think you've perhaps...
To answer the second part, what have I seen as a result? Yes. So I've been walking alongside 2 women this year, so I'll quickly just tell you a bit about their stories. So one woman is deaf and blind, and so we use an Auslan interpreter to communicate together. And so she's on the disability pension, so you can imagine her income is quite tight, and she needs to be really careful in managing her finances. She's actually really savvy. When I looked at her budget, I was like, you're doing a great job. But just to have someone who's there with her, who can help her feel really confident in the decisions that she's making, the budget she's putting together, has been a real blessing to her. And she actually knows Jesus, and she's a blessing to me. And I pray for her, and it's interpreted in sign. She prays for me, and it's interpreted back out. And I actually think it's a real ministry to her interpreter, who's interpreting our prayers between us. It's like the two of us. And we always pray for our interpreter in our prayers, so he has to interpret that happening as well, which is fun for us. The other woman that I'm walking alongside, she's got a really hard story. So she actually was in a domestic violence relationship for 8 years and came out of that situation just really broken, really deep financial distress, really significant debt that she was really pressured and belittled into taking out during that time. And her health was really low, so her mental health was really broken, and her physical health as well as a result of the stress that she was experiencing. And the first time we met together, she just cried the whole time. She just kept on saying, I'm so embarrassed, just so ashamed, because she'd never told anyone. She's actually in quite a high-powered job in quite an affluent area of Sydney. And I just hadn't told any of her friends about the circumstance that she was going in because there was so much shame associated with it. And so this was the first time she was able to really open herself up and invite someone into that space. But during the time that I've been with her, I've just seen such incredible transformation in her confidence and actually in her health as a result of that as well. And she doesn't know Jesus, but she's really open to prayer. And she started saying to me evidence that she has of God answering her prayers. And she shared a quote just a few weeks ago that she gave me permission to share with you. So I thought I'd just read her words as an example. So she says, asking for help was a big deal for me. I tried so hard to manage on my own for so long. It was actually so hard to ask for help. I now feel so much more confident and comfortable. I can just de-stress. I just needed that push and to have support and ways of working things out and getting help. I'm really, really proud of myself. I'm really, really proud of it. I told some friends, big deal, that I can see my bank account going up and up and up, and that hasn't been the case for years. It's been a good 10 years since it's done that. I don't have a credit card now. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I said to my friends, it's the best decision I ever made, just to drop my ego and just get help. I felt God helping me through it. It's been great. It's been beautiful. And she goes on to talk about her health and how much it's improved as well. And so, I mean, she's right in the middle of that journey. But at the moment, we have our end of financial year appeal, and they're telling the story of a woman called Cheryl. Some of you might have engaged with that story. And she actually, she got engaged with the church through money mentoring, and then was invited to an alpha course after, relationship and, cups of tea and many things like that, and came to Jesus through that alpha course and has been baptized and is a part of that church. And she just shares so eloquently her really beautiful story, coming from a place of real brokenness to a place where she felt accepted and loved and had the opportunity to know Jesus. And so, yeah, those are the kind of results that we see and that we love.
So I think you've already given us some indication, but I was going to ask you how our church could be involved or support this work. Now, you just mentioned it's the end of financial year appeal. So maybe you'd like to elaborate on how we could help and support and get involved.
Yeah, of course. Well, if you feel prompted that you want to be sowing into this ministry, it only is able to exist because of the support of churches and Christians around Australia who contribute financially to be able to allow us to be able to be involved in this space and in this training. And so if that's you, then you can Google Christians Against Poverty Australia, and the website will come up with instructions about how to donate. And if that seems difficult, feel free to ask me, and I can also help you get set up with that. And if you feel a calling to be a money mentor and you want to be trained and you want to walk alongside people in financial distress, then let me know about that too. Our church currently isn't signed up, but we very well could be, and I already know some people who've expressed an interest in that. And so it's great to know if people feel their heart moved in that way, and we can look at that further.
Well, thank you, Laura. And I just want to want us to just have a quick word of prayer for Laura as we thank her again for being part of this ministry. Lord God, we just thank you for Laura. We thank you for her passion for serving you in places and situations that are challenging and distressing. Give her your strength and your sweet disposition as she takes your word to those people, Lord. And we just thank you that she shared with us this morning. Amen.